Okay, welcome to the European Parliament. Good morning to everybody. I'm very glad, together with Calypso, to host this event on a subject on which I'm strongly committed as Italian elected in France, as the former member of the Council first proposed the transnational list in the Council, and also as a member of the Conference of the Future of Union. So, I mean, I think I got a certain track record to be part of this Odyssey. And this is why I accepted I was very convinced about the proposal from Calypso to try to contribute to your effort. So once again, welcome to Brussels and welcome to the House of European Democracy. Calypso.
Thank you very much, Sandro Gosi, for hosting us. Also welcome from our side, from my side, as a Democratic Odyssey, to this event called Democracy in Crisis: Should a Permanent European Citizens Assembly Supplement the European Parliament? Hosted by Sandro Gosi. Thank you so much again. And we have about 50, 60, I'm really bad in counting, people in the room, and we have hundreds probably already in the live stream, so the audience is much bigger than in this room. My name is Maximilian Fries. I'm the Executive Director of Europe Calling and also part of the Democratic Odyssey crew. Just want to say a few words at the beginning before we start. First of all, this is a dialogue. Please participate in the discussion offline, just by a show of hands, so here in the room, or online. We have a Slido link in the chat, and you can also ask a question there. And the aim is that everyone can speak, and we will have, so everyone can speak. And as much as it's a dialogue, it is also speed dating, because you will see we will have MEPs and other guests and allies coming in and out in the room during the 2 hours. So as a facilitator, we'll try to sprinkle in kind of fixed contributions from people I know that are here for a longer time, and allies and everyone who can be here. But you will see it will be very lively, very co-creative, and maybe also a bit chaotic. And I think that pretty much describes democracy. So, you know, it's probably the right way to do this. So, and we will start setting the scene, or we'll get the scene set by Calypso Nicolaidis and Sandro Gosi. Calypso is professor at the European University Institute and scientific coordinator for the Democratic Odyssey. And Sandro Gosi, of course, who just welcomed you as MEP for the Renew Group, an Italian elected in France, as you said. Thank you much for having us, and the floor to you.
Sandro, crew, colleagues, MEPs, thank you for your hosting us. Because as you know, a ship of democracy, of transnational democracy, goes through very rough waters, storms and sirens and monsters, the pathologies of democracy, all of these dangers and challenges. And so to find a port here at the European Parliament today, October 14, 2025, after a long journey of our pilot assembly, is a wonderful moment for us. Thank you for hosting us. Thank you for honoring us. And you know, as you know, when ships go through rough waters, what do they really need? They need, how many are sailors in the room? So quite a few, yes. You need a beacon, a light in the dark. And today, that's what we're doing. We're discussing our beacon, that light. That light is an idea. It's an idea for which we've campaigned for many years, but is now really turning into a movement, a social movement, a political movement. And we're so grateful that you and many of your MEPs colleagues and others in European institutions, alongside civil society, you know, are becoming part of this movement. So I would like to ask you, Sandro, in our little moment of introduction, why do you support this beacon of a permanent citizen assembly institutionalized in the EU that hopefully will be itinerant and work with you, the European Parliament? Why do you support it?
First of all, for the reason you mentioned, because we are living in a period of rough waters. The rough waters is nationalism. The rough waters is the fight, the the attempt to destroy the very fundamental, the very basis on which we have built up our democracies, and we are building our European democracy. Nationalism is a real threat to democracy, to rule of law, in Europe and outside Europe, within Europe as well. And I strongly believe that transnationalism is the real answer to nationalism. So it's the real radical alternative to nationalism. And this is why the nationalists hate us so much. I mean, I got a track record of 8 campaigns against me. You can go on the web and you will be, you will find mines of attacks. Why? Why they attack you? Why they attack initiative like this? Why they attack people like me? Because they feel the danger. They feel the danger because they feel that if there is an effective and potentially majoritarian alternative to the neo-nationalism they are pushing for, it is us. It is transnationalism. It is the building up of a democracy which doesn't replace national democracy. It's not supranational. It's open the doors and build up, put down the walls between the national spheres of democracies. This is what is missing in Europe, and this is what is possible to do in Europe. And this is the reason why I think that initiative like this deserve to be supported, also because it is complementary, it nurtures, it refreshes, it re-energizes the representative democracy. I represent citizens in the European Parliament in a democratic way, but I don't feel threatened by direct democratic participation or movement like yours. I think that together we can refresh, energize, and relaunch democracy, and together we can build up that transnational democratic dimension in Europe, which is badly missing, and this is the reason why we have to unite force and fight together.
Well, Sandro, this is, of course, music to our ears, but here we are in the European Parliament. Maybe it's true to say that not all of your colleagues in the EP would agree with you. And here we are here today to have the difficult conversation. That's what democracy is all about. So what do you say to colleagues who say, well, it's all very nice to work with citizens, but don't have another assembly. We're representing, the people. You've been elected, of course, in a very original way, an Italian and a French list, as you were saying. You're a bit the symbol of transnationalism here. But this assembly that you're all proposing, this People's Assembly, Citizen Assembly, that would travel around Europe, why do we need that? The EP does a good job.
I think that we need it because I think that we need to invent or promote a new form of civic and citizen participation. I think that there are also some good experiences at national level from which we can draw some lessons. I think that the civic debate which prepared the Irish referenda was a good experience. I think that also what it was done in France on climate change, on the end of life, was a good experience. I think that this is something that must, I repeat, enrich and develop the democratic dimension also around the European Parliament. I think that the European Parliament shouldn't be afraid of direct participation or transnational civic initiative. On the contrary, it should be a little bit at the center of the network. I think that this initiative should go through also the European Parliament. The European Parliament should take the commitment to relaunch through, own initiative resolution, the requests which come up from a movement like this, and also the European Parliament as guardian, democratic guardian of what is happening in the European Union should push, should verify whether the Commission or the Member State in the Council pay attention and ensure follow-up to this initiative. So I don't see it as a threat. I think also as something which could also give a new role to the European Parliament itself.
Well, you mentioned, Sandro, the French, the Irish, there's been national assemblies. Of course, we all remember the Conference on the Future of Europe, a transnational panel. It wasn't called an assembly. There's very, very few. We will discuss, but it's harder to do. Transnationalism is harder to do. And of course, it's harder to do as translocal, as we like to say, with the Democratic Odyssey, as something that represents Europe comes to town. So ours is very ambitious, very unique, but because we knew it was unique and we did have a pilot assembly, and I think in a moment what we want to do is to kind of show a glimpse of that with a video to re-inspire the crew and all our friends. So perhaps before we show the video, turning to you and asking you, do you think that this initiative that we took as the Democratic Odyssey of a pilot assembly to demonstrate that this was possible, not a crazy dream, completely unrealistic, can that inspire the next step of slowly and incrementally institutionalizing?
Yeah, it's true that we had this experience with the conference, The Future of Union. I mean, I'm not here to put in front my list of my party, but that, as you know, it was one of the priorities that we presented during the electoral campaign at the European election in 2019. It was a proposal of Emmanuel Macron in his letter on the 2nd of March 2019, where he proposed to reshape the European Union through a new democratic way, and we launched with him in a letter addressed to the European citizens, not to the member state. That was already very important, very new. We launched this idea of the Conference of the Future of Union. And the conference happened, and I was proudly a member of this conference as member of the European Parliament. And I think that the conference was a very good experience for those who participate. I mean, we prepare it with, open debate in 4, I think, European cities. Including Florence, including the European University Institute, then Maastricht, Dublin, and Warsaw, if I not remember. Yeah, in Poland.
But
wait, yeah. No, I write to the but. There were 49 recommendations, of which 39 were addressed the issue of democracy. The problem that nobody knew apart from those who participate to this conference. So apart from those citizens who participate to the debate in the 4 capitals, those 1,000 citizens which were mobilized and selected randomly to participate to the conference, the ambassador of that 1,000 citizens, which together with the representative of national parliament, European Parliament, European government and European institution, negotiate and discuss and debated for the 49 recommendation. Nobody knew about that. And that was a clear strategy, of the government. They didn't want to make the public opinion aware of what was happening, because the more the public opinion was aware of the request of the citizens, largely supported at least by the European Parliament, but also by the national parliament, they would have been under pressure to deliver, and they didn't want to deliver. They didn't want to reshape the union. They didn't want to reform the institution. They didn't want to introduce new form of democratic participation. So the strategy was keep it silent. And also I have to say that the media were very lazy. I don't know how many times I talked to journalists. I said, why don't you go, ignore me. I don't need the conference of the Future of Union to go on the media. But these citizens go to ask to this bank employer from Estonia, go to see that retired gentleman from Germany. Why are they here? What they do? Why they spend part of the time debating freely about the future of Union with the representative of the democracy and institution at the national and European level? And this didn't happen. And this is the major problem we have to face.
And Sandro, this is exactly what we want to address. Max, we're passing the floor back to you, because that's the conversation we need to have. We are launching now a campaign. We've had a campaign, but a real big campaign, a social movement to support this campaign and our vision, to amend it, to change it, to co-design it. And so welcome all of us and welcome to the ship. In fact, you've been boarding it on and off, so it's wonderful now at this stage to remedy through a strategy of both bottom-up energy and top-down kind of authority the limitations of the past conference on the future of Europe. Max, the floor is back to you.
I got a question for Calypso before.
Of course.
You say permanent European People Assembly. And this word is absolutely scary for the member of the European Parliament. So what do you need permanent? Permanent is the idea, the institution, or permanent citizens member of this assembly? Because I think that the two things are pretty different.
I mean, the wonderful thing is we still have time this morning to discuss all these elements. What is permanent? After all, we're all going to die at some point around this table. None of us is permanent, right? And certainly not the citizens who will be sitting for maybe 6 months, maybe a year, renewed by rotation. So contrary to you guys who are so lucky to have your seats for a while, but not speaking of you, but others have time to also be corrupted in various way or another. One of the big lessons of citizen assemblies, there's no time to corrupt them. There's no time for the temptation of power. And certainly people in this room excluded, I hasten to say. So this is why the non-permanence of membership for a permanent institution that will not happen at the whim of politicians or bureaucrats is the key to our story. But thank you for asking that question. Won't we all come back to this? What does permanence mean? It's a highly philosophical question as well as political.
We will indeed. Thank you both very much for setting the stage. And now we will continue with the video because the Democratic Odyssey has, as Calypso mentioned, now done 3 citizens' assemblies in Florence, in Athens, and in Vienna. And we'll have a video about that and then talk a bit more about what happened there and how that can be a role model for what we're talking about today. Let's go. Yeah.
Wake up, I'm about to shake up every little thing, show you all that we can be. Come dance in my club. Fireflies in the yard, everything's a work of art. Already got everything we need. Just dance in the club. It's always in my head. You never get enough. That's how I'm feeling left. My friends dance until we drop. And the good times don't stop. The good times don't stop. The good times don't stop. Late nights sitting under starlight, searching for the meaning in the beauty that we see. Come bathe in the clouds. Back roads where the magic unfolds. Happiness is simple, all you need is to believe. Come jump in the clouds. It's always in my head. until we drop and the good times don't stop.
Thank you so much. And I promise you it will be lively. And you saw that also in the video that we had a lot of fun actually also. And I think democracy should also be about fun and dancing and, you know, not only deliberation. And as I said, it will be lively also. This event will be lively, a bit chaotic and a bit like speed dating. And so I'm welcoming two MEPs that just joined us during the video. One is Laurent Vince from the EPP group from Romania, member of the AFCO committee. Welcome, great to have you. And the other one is Dario Freund from the Green SIFA group from Germany, also member of the AFCO. Great to have you here. So we are here to discuss. I'm just getting you into discussion here as well. We're here to discuss whether there should be a permanent People's Assembly supplementing the work of the European Parliament. And if you think so, then how to do that and what you need for that. And I will give you both the floor. Oh, wonderful. And a third one, wonderful. Juan Fernando Lopez Aguilar is here as well from Spain, from the S&D group, and also member of the AFCO committee. Great to have you too. So I will give you the floor. Well, I think the habit in the European Parliament in the order of the sizes of the groups, right? So EPP goes first. Here you go. Maybe in 2 or 3 minutes. Should a permanent People's Assembly supplement the European Parliament? Laurent Vince.
Thank you, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the European Parliament. And I would like to thank my colleague and friend Sandro Gozzi for this invitation. Probably he invited me to have also some opposing view on the matter so that we steer debate. Let me say that from the title, starting with the title, in my opinion, European democracy is not in crisis. It is challenged on many fronts: migration, war, also the less competitive Europe faced with China and our traditional partner, the US, changing a lot. But it's not a crisis. And we also learned from previous crisis, so-called crisis, that Europe is resilient. So Europe is able to find its own solutions to the problems, and we could also see that citizens appreciate it. So when you look to the European elections turnout in 2024, actually the turnout is higher, and it was higher than in the past 25 years. So this means that citizens are interested in what is happening in Europe, in the European Union, and in our institutions. Of course, they expressed their view, and they have opinions that not necessarily are in line with our belief. There are many contradictory opinions. There are many colleagues here in the European Parliament who are on another camp in many European issues, but this is how democracy works. What we need to change is our accountability. So do we reflect in our work here in the European Parliament what the citizens expect from us? Do we really stick to our mandate that was given from the voters last year in the election, or we just come here in the European Parliament and we neglect totally the call from the citizens, and we do something that is more expected and supported by the Brussels bubble, meaning that voters will not like that, and voters will become even more radicalized, and they will try to support political actors that are against this mainstream. Regarding strictly, the European Citizens Assembly, it sounds attractive. It's a good name, but if it is something that would try to go in parallel with the European Parliament, then the representativity of the European Parliament, of the democracy, will change. The legitimacy of our European Parliament actually will weaken when we have a citizens' assembly that is not elected. It's a selected body. And we have such experiences, and they are good. We have citizens' participation. We have petitions. It's a special procedure in the European Parliament. We have European Citizens' Initiative. Just in parentheses, I'm a big fan of European Citizens' Initiatives, but they are totally ineffective. After more than a decade of using them, we had 11 successful citizens' initiatives. None of them was translated into legislation. So the problem maybe lies in our institutions not to provide the right answer. We have public consultations. We have regular dialogues with the citizens. So I'm not sure that the parallel institution will help a lot. There is, though, an exception. There is an exception. In the European Union, we have around 50 million people who belong to national minorities or speak a regional language. Their vast majority, around 40 million, are not represented in the European Parliament. Let me give you an example. In this mandate is the first time we don't have any Roma member of the European Parliament, meaning neglecting a very important social, economic, and cultural group that are the Roma throughout Europe. They are around 10 million people, I would say. They have no representation, and this is bad. So, for example, thinking about an advisory body that encompasses national minorities and language groups, that could be really useful. So, briefly, thank you.
Thank you very much. We maybe have some time. We'll definitely have some time for discussion afterwards, but I'm going to welcome the fourth MEP in the room now, if I count correctly, and the fifth, of course, but you already spoke. Leo Luca Orlando, welcome. Thank you for being here. He's in the Green CIFA group from Italy, but we will continue with, now in the order of the group sizes, Juan Fernando Lopez Aguilar. Welcome, great to have you, and your view on should the European Parliament be complemented by a permanent European Citizens' Assembly.
It's me to thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to engage in a talk with you all. Welcome to the European Parliament. It's my pleasure. I'm Juan Lopez Aguilar. I've been a member of the European Parliament for some years now, devoted to constitutional affairs and fundamental rights, liberties, justice, and home affairs. And I thank Sandro Gozzi for gathering us all in this conversation. I've been going through your leaflet about democratic Odyssey, and I pay my respect to your motivation, to your interest, and I praise your way forward. And of course, I welcome any initiative which is to enrich the quality of European democracy. I would agree just this once Laura and Vince, because yes, I don't think democracy is in crisis, but I add, democracy is never to be taken for granted. Democracy is must never be out of our sight, our citizens' sight, because yes, liberties, rights are hard to conquer and very easy to erode or to wither away or to crumble down. And yes, of course, there are threats to democracy in the European Union. I mean, I wouldn't go political, why should I? But of course, I have my concerns about some foes of democracy, which have always done their best in order to erode democracy or downgrade it or to water it down or to make it worse than it should be. And you're actually doing your best to make it better. So I pay my tribute of respect and I welcome your endeavors. And having said this, I am a strong defender of the European Parliament. The European Parliament is the institution that has grown the most through the European experience, for sure. Through the 70 years of the European supranational integration process, if there is an institution that has always been on the rise, it's been the European Parliament. Not only because of its size, it's enlarged, obviously. I mean, also because of its quality and because of its powers. The European Parliament was not always a lawmaking body. It started out being a consultative assembly. Then it, at a certain point of time, 1979, 45 years ago, it was directly elected by universal suffrage. The only directly elected, democratically elected institution in the European architecture. It's very unique in its nature because it's not only the only directly elected institution in the European Union, but it's also the only directly elected supranational lawmaking parliament in the world. But at a certain point of time, it became a parliament, invested the European Commission, can vote a motion of censure. It happened once, 1999. This mandate of the European Parliament have voted 3, none of them successful, but we have the power to make them successful. It could happen, believe me. And then we exert control, but we do make laws, which is most important. And we have a budgetary authority. So we are parliament, The thing is that the European Parliament, despite the fact that it has grown the most in the European institutional landscape, it's never perfect. And it's to be perfected. And you're doing your job to perfect it, to complement citizens' initiative, to complement citizens' assembly, a permanent citizens' assembly. That should be the idea, to follow up, to steer up, to stimulate, to encourage, and to keep an eye and to exert scrutiny on the roles which are endowed to the European Parliament. Having said this, I would also say that there are many of us here trying to make the European Parliament better. We have initiative. And in comparative terms, I'm a professor of constitutional law, comparative constitutional law. I'm well aware that most parliaments, national parliaments, do not actually exert parliament's initiative. They follow government's initiative. That's the way they actually behave. And that's the way we do behave. But we should be given actual legislative initiative. It shouldn't be easy because in the European Parliament, though democratically elected, there has never been a political group which has had the majority to make it on its own. So in this European Parliament, you learned to live with each other by obligation. You have to go across the aisle and negotiate 24/7 with other political groups if you are to shape up a majority. And you negotiate in a variable geometry to shape up majorities. And that's a learning experience, a humbling experience, but also a learning experience about democracy, about the democracy of complexity. And of course, in the European Parliament, there has been, let's face it, an increasing number of anti-European seats. And I fight. It's not that I only announce the issue, the problem. I fight the issue. I fight the problem. There's an increasing number of anti-European seats in the European Parliament. But that's also what democracy is about. They are elected, as I am. So you also have to live with anti-Europeans within the European Union. And you are here gathering with a pro-European motivation. You care about Europe. I couldn't respect you more. You care about Europe. And having said this, I would finalize that I can only appreciate if you help us to communicate better, because you're so concerned. The only deficit that I acknowledge in the European Parliament is the communication deficit. We don't have a democratic deficit. We're directly elected by universal suffrage. I've been running for elections for some years. Every time I've been sitting here, I was elected to doing this job. There is no democratic deficit. There is no actual institutional deficit. We do make laws just like any other parliament. But we have a deficit to communicate with you. And I thank you for being there, trying to reach out to us, and we reach out to you so that we overcome the deficit.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We'll continue. First, just welcome Tomislav Sokol from Croatia, EPP MEP, and also a substitute member of AFCO and full member of IMCO. And I want to now give the floor to Daniel Freund because he needs to leave, I think, in a few minutes. So Daniel Freund from the Greens.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I've been following the project, the Democratic Odyssey, for quite some time. And it's impressive to see what you guys have done and the discussions. I mean, I myself, I've been fighting to further strengthen European democracy and that democracy. I mean, whether you call it crisis or not, but I cannot, close my eyes before the threat that we see to democracy. For a couple of decades after the Second World War, it seemed like democracy was spreading, and particularly after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Fukuyama said the end of history, right? And democracy and liberty and freedom and human rights would just extend eternally. And today we see that that's not happening. And now there is, autocrats are on the march in many places in the world, including inside the European Union. We now have a member state, that this parliament with a vast majority has called an electoral autocracy, is no longer a functioning democracy in Hungary. And we see threats to media freedom, to democracy, to fundamental freedoms of the European Union in a number of member states. So thinking about how we can bring this union closer to citizens, how we can involve them more, I deeply believe that at the end of the day, citizens are the sovereign. That they delegate their power for a while to elected officials is their choice, but at any point in time, they can also take it back. They can take decisions, as citizens if they so wish. I therefore deeply believe, that the European Citizens Initiative is good, but that we could go further, not just give citizens the right of initiative, but give them the right to decide certain matters, obviously under good rules. Not under, not to do the same stupidity that the British did with Brexit and so on. But I think you can make good rules for referenda and for direct citizens' decisions. And I also think that parliamentary democracy, which for me is the best form of democracy. I haven't seen another better one proposed, but I'm always open, but can be complemented by citizens' assemblies. I was one of the board members of the Conference on the Future of Europe, and I looked at different forms of citizen participation, successful citizens' assemblies in Ireland, in France. I looked at the permanent citizens' assembly that I think is the first one actually in the town next to where I'm from, in Eupen, here in Belgium, that has a permanent citizens' assembly. And we tried to learn from that, and we managed to have these citizens' assemblies as part of the Conference on the Future of Europe, which I think were successful, right? What wasn't so successful, unfortunately, was then turning the recommendations that citizens made into actual political action. In the AFCO committee, and many of the colleagues are here, we translated those citizens' recommendations into actual amendments to the treaties. We tabled them. I was one of the rapporteurs. We got a big majority here in the parliament, and it's coming up in about a month. It's the second anniversary of the parliament making use of its right of initiative on the treaties for the first time, but also 2 years of being ignored by the member states, by the council, which hasn't even opened a debate with us. I mean, you might say that the 140 pages of treaty amendments that we came up with, that every single idea is misguided, stupid, or whatever. You can say that, right? but not even talking to us about, you know, how can we make the union fit for the future? How can we, 16 years after we changed the treaties last time in a very different world, how can we adapt the union to the new challenges, be it defense, be it, you know, closer collaboration on health issues, on other things? I think we need to have that debate. The final question on, you know, how the citizen assembly looks like. My conviction is that we have a citizens assembly. It is the European Parliament. You can then discuss whether election or sortition or something else is the best way to form this people's assembly. I think election is not the worst way, but I'm always open to discuss and definitely to have sorted citizens to complement our discussion and to for example develop a future vision. I think that we did that in the conference was great, and we should continue that and have that for lots of discussions that we have here in Brussels. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Daniel. And so it will be a bit mixed now, because I know the timings when the people need to leave. So don't be surprised if, you know, it feels a bit funny. So because and then that's why I call Tomislav Sokol next. Thank you very much for being with us, and your opinion on should the European Parliament get a permanent citizens assembly to complement it.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to maybe just to add something in the introduction. So I think my most important function is as the EPP coordinator in the Health Committee, because I think health is one of the most important topics that we are working on today. Unfortunately, not that represented maybe in the European institutions, especially the proposal for the next 7-year budget. And I hope that this is something that will change. And I hope this kind of initiatives will also be used to put pressure on the European Commission to reflect people's priorities better. And I think health is one of the people's priorities in the EU, according to all the surveys. Unfortunately, as I said, not that represented in the next 7-year budget, because essentially the Commission has proposed to abolish the separate health program in the EU budget, and this is something that we have to fight against. So I'm using this opportunity maybe to advocate for this a little bit. On the topic, so I like to say what I think, which is not necessarily what everybody likes to hear, and I will be perfectly open on that. When you speak about democracy on the European level, there are some structural problems that we need to resolve. And the first problem is that we don't have a European polity in essence, because if you look at, for instance, at the turnout in the elections, the lowest turnout is for European elections. That shows that unfortunately people on the ground still do not see themselves primarily as Europeans, but as members of their own national constituency of their member state. And the interest in European policies is still not nearly as big as on the national policy. Maybe yes in principle, but as I said, if you look at the turnout in the elections, things are pretty clear. European elections always have the lowest turnout in all types of elections when compared to the regional ones, national ones, parliamentary ones, etc. So I think that's the first problem. So if you want to, first we need to create European polity if you want to have this kind of representation on the European level. Because if you don't have this, so what I read, so the proposal is to have 300 people chosen randomly, if I understand correctly. With this kind of, if these people are completely chosen randomly, so if you want them to be representative of all parts of society, etc., you will get most of these people who are not interested in the European Union at all. And a lot of people who just don't know what European Union is about. I'm not trying to be condescending, but that's what it is. If you want to stratify the people to actually get those people who are involved and interested in European politics, you will not be representative anymore, because you will get more highly educated people, more people from the cities, more people from some member states, etc., etc. So if you want to get people who are actually interested and know something about European politics, and I think getting this representative number of people, I think that will be the biggest issue. So that's the first thing. The second, so to have people who actually know something EU, who are interested, but who are also representative of the overall structure of European society. So that's the first thing. The second thing is how you would organize the powers. So what will you do? Because if you want to give some concrete powers to this assembly, you will have to change the treaty. And to change the treaty, you need the whole process, etc., etc. So the ratification of all 27 member states of the parliament. And to be honest, I don't know if you realize that, but we are currently in the longest period without a treaty change since 1980s, which means that we have extremely different visions and ideas of what the European Union should be, between different parts of society, between different political groups, between different member states, etc. Just one example. So if you ask Scandinavians, they would say, yes, we want to harmonize rule of law, we want to harmonize competitiveness rules, we want to harmonize human rights regulation, etc. But labor law, not so much. Why? Because we don't have minimum salaries in our legislation, we have our collective agreements, etc., etc. If you ask Orban, he would say we would not want anything. We don't want a strong EU in any area apart from the budget. We want a strong budget, but on other issues, no. If you ask, for instance, the Spanish, they would say, yes, we want to have strong EU in many issues, but common defense spending, not that much. We are not that close to Russia, so we don't really care that much. So that's the problem. So visions are so different that any kind of treaty change and any kind of broader consensus of what we want the European Union to do is just non-existent, and that's the second major flaw. What we hear a lot also when we speak about the crisis of democracy. I agree. There are many problems, but the solution is no. When we speak about we want democracy, yes, but this is for what we get from some political groups. So yes, we want democracy, but if they choose someone that we consider extremist or whatever, yeah, then we don't want democracy anymore. So democracy, yes, but only when we choose those people that are close to our positions. And that's also an issue, because if you have some, I don't know, far right parties or whatever you want to call them, if they have support of 25-30% of the people, etc., then you have to ask ourselves, why are these people voting for them? You cannot say that all those people are idiots or all those people are nuts. Because not all people who vote for, I won't mention them by name, but not all people who vote for these far right or radical whatever political parties are Nazis. But it seems that if they're voting for them, the reason for that is that we failed them. We as mainstream parties have failed them. We are not resolving issues related to immigration, related to competitiveness, to demographic crisis, to war in Ukraine, to relationship with the US or whatever. So that's a problem. So democracy, yes. More people's engagement, yes. I don't having this kind of assembly on European level to organize it in a way that it's really representative would be very hard. Yeah. But definitely what we need is to have strong engagement with civil society. I've been saying that all along. For instance, in the area of health, I'm strongly advocating to have patient organizations.
Sorry, I need to interrupt you. Can you finishing up?
Yes, to have all different parts of NGO civil society represented. So I think that's important. But I don't think it's realistic at this stage to have some kind of a common European people's representation that would be really representative and that could really do something in this way that is proposed here. So that's my opinion.
Thank you very much. We have a lot to discuss, and we have another hour to do that. Just to mention, if you're interested in learning any more details about the proposals, we will discuss about this. But there's also quite a long ebook in it, and actually Daniel Freund, who just left, has written a chapter in that ebook, and other MEPs actually. I think it's a living document, right? So it can also be extended, so everyone wants to contribute something to it. And this day is also a contribution to this work. And now, before we go into the second half and then introducing our other guests and the questions, we have Mr. Leo Luca Orlando here as well, and we are very glad to have you, and also looking forward to what you think about the question whether the European Parliament should be supplemented by a permanent citizens' assembly.
Thanks a lot for this invitation. Good morning to everyone. Democratic Odyssey. I think that this proposal of permanent European Citizens Assembly is just the other face of democracy in crisis. I can say is the confirmation that we have not only democracy in crisis, but we have a crisis of the European Parliament, the crisis of the national parliament. And so I think that what we need is to use this crisis to change, use this crisis to be reborn, using this crisis to be regenerated is a tremendous opportunity for regeneration, for democratic regeneration. Therefore, I think that what we need to do is just to not only to research for democratic legitimacy, but to do concretely something. Therefore, I think that we have to speak not in a place far in the moon, but we have to speak about today and in Europe. Today in Europe means that we have three elements that we have just to underline. The first element is the crisis of traditional parties. The second element is to remember that we have so many one-man party that is exactly something different for the people participation to democratic choice. So I think that we have only B2B relations, not the sense of community. And I think that this permanent European Citizens Assembly has to build an European community. That is where everybody is different and equal. Everybody is different and equal. It means that we have just to mention how important is the relations with the autocratic member states. And it means that I have no reply. I have only some question to you. And I give my, at your disposal just to give my contribute. The first question. It is important just to choose the relations between this permanent European Citizens Assembly and PETI, the Commission for Petitions. Because we cannot imagine that are two different worlds. Because Commission for Petition is exactly the entrance to European Union, to European Parliament. So I think that we have to find some form of cooperation. The second is parties. How is possible to involve the European parties in this permanent assembly? Because we cannot separate. I know I have a fear for the presence of the parties. I'm not exactly the best friend of the parties, as Sandro knows. But we cannot avoid to involve them. Otherwise, we appear to be just somebody speaking about the moon. And the third position is the permanent assembly has to interact with the national parliaments. I know it's not so easy, but it should be great to have an interaction between this permanent assembly and the national parliament. Because, as probably Sandro knows, I believe in the interdependence. Every 4th of July, I celebrate the Independence Day. Somebody celebrates Independence Day. I prefer to celebrate Interdependence Day. Until when we will not discover that we are interdependent, we will have no peace, no democracy. It's exactly the lessons coming from the crisis of the United Nations, from the crisis of Declaration of Human Rights, from the crisis of the Criminal Court of Justice, from the crisis of UNESCO, from the crisis of the European Union. What is European Union? It's just the best example of interdependence. We risk to be a list of independent states, exactly the opposite of our vision. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And then I would give the floor back to Sandro for a moment, because I think you need to leave, and we'll leave us with some thoughts. Yeah?
Continue.
Okay, the team says you need to leave.
I changed myself.
Okay. So that's great.
Interdependent, but not that much.
Okay, very good. So
Flexible.
that's excellent. Well, having worked in for MEP, I know how that feels on the other side. So I'm not going to detail that. But this is a good opportunity to bring the citizens in, and I'm looking for Jamila and for Theo here in front of us. They are here to represent the Citizens Council. So the citizens that have been part of the 3 pilot assemblies have formed a council, a body there where they're governing themselves now, and they're here to take us in and contribute to this event. So great that you made your way to Brussels. Thank you for being part of this and all your energy in there. You have the word.
Ok, super. Merci beaucoup. Bonjour. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the organizers and for the MEPs to welcome us here as citizens. I'm really glad to be here to share with you some feedback on this beautiful democratic odyssey that I had the pleasure to join as citizen, but also as citizen participating and also as observer. We citizens, with a diversity of gender, age, etc., coming from everywhere in the world and living somewhere in Europe, belonging to the Europe community, as you mentioned, the European polis in Greek meaning, we joined this amazing adventure, Democratic Odyssey, in Athens, Firenze, Vienna, to share our dreams, fears, hope, ideas, imagination, to revivify the European democracy. I need to underline that this road, democratic road built together, was during 1 year and not 10 years like the Greek Ulysses. But it was like him, a philosophical road. The necessary journey through the other and elsewhere to find oneself at home. Because we, others, as the Greek writer Yannis Kurtakis said, since others never cease to inhabit and transform us. So the Greek Odyssey consists in 24 songs. We, in the Democratic Odyssey, we created 10 songs through a social charter that Theo will precise in a few minutes. After this road of 3 steps assembly, we build together with around 63 citizens a common road inside the European People's Council, which was set up independently from the political party. And it was set up from the bottom up, not from the top down. This is very important to remind this. We still continue to be united in our diversity as the motto of the EU, to give a real impetus to the European police in a beautiful spirit of strength, happiness, creativity, love, and above all, responsibility. This is very important to mention, as we did in Democratic Odyssey. And I would like to mention one very important point. There was, during the Democratic Odyssey, and still continue in our European People's Council, there is a process of empowerment, very, very important for all citizens, by expressing their views on a range of subjects, particularly on the European issues, which is for many citizens very far away about their daily life. And by sharing opinion, debating, deliberating, and being listened and heard, there is indubitably a process of feeling, being considered. This is very important. The philosopher Corinne Pellichon, for example, say that is important, this feeling of consideration. It's come from the Latin cum siderare, from Sidus, star. It means we look at someone as if they were as important as a star in the sky, of course, not those of Hollywood. And through consideration, this is the dignity of the person that will be taken at stake. And precisely, everyone should feel that they are a full member of the European community and not totally outside. This is very important. This is a great challenge for the success of the Citizens' Assembly, but also the life of democracy in general. Inside the European People's Council, we continue to process of deliberation and have started a series of local groups in Vienna, Athens, Firenze. The aim is to connect with similar organization groups to learn best practice and build together, and also put seeds of democracy and to promote also this importance of the social charter and this so amazing experience of democratic Odyssey. For example, for the International Day of Democracy, there were various events organized in Firenze, Vienna, and Athens to raise awareness of citizens on this field. We citizens, we want and we will be an active contributor toward the EU institution and stakeholders, for example, through this special commission on Democracy Shield. And we think that this daily dialogue is very important to promote the social charter. In particular, this recommendation of the Permanent Assembly of Citizens. Of course, the title, yeah. Of course, my answer to the answer of the title is yes, we think that it's important to get it. It will not replace, but we will collectively give also a point of view of the citizen. And this is very important because the voice of citizen matter not only for the election and at the election time. The voice of citizen matter permanently. This is very, very important. And of course, that we are not spectator. We speak actor. We are speak acting. This is very, very important. And we need to contribute to this special time of crisis at European level, but everywhere. And this is important for MEPs and representative of the Commission and representative of the member state, etc., to have a lot of courage to set up this permanent assembly. And please go ahead, avanti popolo. And,
thank you so much. Sorry for interrupting. You will play an important part in the discussion. Just to say, they're spending so much time into this work, so I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah.
Theo.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity. When this wonderful journey started a year ago in Athens, I could never imagine myself being here and talking to such a prestigious panel of MPs and representatives of. I'm grateful also to the members of the Council that have elected us here to represent them. As has already been mentioned in Vienna, we developed 10 recommendations and finalized the Citizens' Charter. This is a shared declaration of democratic principles and citizens' commitment for a more egalitarian Europe. As you can, I don't know if you can see the actual pathways. We cover many issues like education, participatory budgeting, ways of self-organization, immigration, care, technology. I will not take too much time. I will just mention 3 of them that I consider vital. First, being involved is also our responsibility as citizens. Participation should not be limited to elections. Drawing on our real-life experience and expertise, we can all contribute to decisions made. Authorities can be empowered by civil society and invest cleverly in civic spaces and infrastructure at every opportunity. We propose some steps in order to achieve this, like developing a toolkit, inspired by the Democratic Odyssey's methodology, to convey this idea of citizen assemblies, explain why it is important, and provide suggestions on how to form assemblies, recruit, facilitating training, and how to reach out to the public. We could establish in each country and across countries a network of local ambassadors to spread the idea of participation together with schools, businesses, and civil society organizations. Also promote an Erasmus for participation, it could be called Dimus, for example, that will enhance cross-national exchanges and hold meetings once a year. Our seventh point is transparency is non-negotiable. It can build trust and accountability. Governments must regularly release plain language updates on decisions and budgets, combat the spread of fake news and the manipulation of information. How can we achieve this? We can develop a culture of transparency in school, teaching what it is and how to recognize it. Promote a mapping of all actors working on transparency across society. Engage in research, collect and learn from best practices. Establish an independent EU monitoring body with citizen involvement that will ensure the circulation of knowledge and training and inspect the implementation of policies. We could also foster a free, plural and investigative media, encourage professional ethics, and require full transparency of ownership and commercial interests. Last but not least, we believe that despite previous efforts, not everything has been invented yet. So we propose a permanent People's Assembly of randomly selected citizens, a standing body, itinerant with a rotating membership, locally embedded to serve as a bridge between EU institutions and the broader public. How we can do that? 300 participants would be selected by sortition, according to the democratic characteristics of the EU population. They should be EU residents over 18 years old, regardless of nationality. Participation should be mandatory, funded from the EU budget. Could be convened in person during the weekends. Its mandate could last 1 year, and meetings could be held 4 times a year. Participants will receive training on deliberation by experts, selected in a way representing different views on the topic under discussion. For transparency reasons, the whole process could be live-streamed to the general public. The EU institutions will suggest a list of topics as policy priorities, while participants could add new ones. The final result would be legally binding. A managerial board would be established with a mandate of 5 years, consisting of academia, experts in deliberative democracy, civil society organizations, and representatives of the Assembly's participants.
EU, can you come to close?
National and local assemblies could also play an important role. Thank you for listening. We're all striving for a better Europe to make EU institutions more inclusive and empowering to ordinary people.
Thank you, Theo. Thank you very much. And now I give the word to Sandro.
Thank you very much. I have to leave you. So, I would like to first of all, thanks all the colleagues of the European Parliament. Luca Orlando is still here, but also all the others who participated. I think that for you and for us also was very useful. If you are here to the last intervention and to the intervention of members of the European Parliament, there is a long way to go, and there is a lot of work to do. And this is why I was convinced that this initiative was very useful, because you see that, first of all, in my view, there is still a considerable pedagogical work to do, because we need to understand each other what we are talking about exactly. And I don't think it was very clear, always clear this morning. This is why I think that we should do more of this kind of initiative. Second, it is clear that there are different analyses and different assessment about the state of democracy in Europe. There are some of us who are satisfied, recognizing the challenges. There are others who are not satisfied, and they are more demanding. So it is clear that there are also political cleavages which emerge clearly in our intervention, but certainly the fact that we feel in a different way the sense of urgency, and we feel in a different way, and we assess in a different way the functioning the way of functioning of Euro democracy is another issue that we have to talk about. This is the second issue. The third, but I'm sure that you have already many answers, if not all the answers, it is that we need to understand from you how it would really work and how it would really interact. Because I think that certainly we have to do something which is politically very innovative and which I try with in a humble way to embody, because I want to embody transnationalism. This is my idea of doing politics, and it is also, after all, transnationalism at the very basis of your initiative. But we have also to explain how we want to interact with what it exists. So Luca Orlando was insisting, rightly in my view, on the petitions committee. Other colleagues were insisting on the European Citizens Initiative. Others can insist on the State of the Union debate, for example. One of the proposals which we made as Renew Europe was to introduce the Agora, which were assembly, at least at regional level in each region in Europe, which should prepare the State of the Union debate, which we hold, as you know, in this Parliament each year in September, and where we have a real political debate with the European Commission, and we discuss about the political priority, the policy priority, and the legislative program for the year, for the following year. In my view, we should also think that, and this State of the Union debate is prepared within the European Parliament, is prepared within the Committee of the Regions, the Economic and Social Committee, but in my view would benefit from a preparation through Citizens' Assembly at the regional, at least at regional level, where we collect the demand, the expectations of the different citizens. So you see, this is another example, and I could go on, but I have to leave you. But this is why I think that the third point, which Luca Orlando was stressed, was very important. It is clear, democracy is in crisis in our view, in the view of many. We want to reshape union, but we do not start from scratch. We start from something which is existing. We're starting from the most innovative democratic experiment of the world, which is the European Parliament, because we think still that is something normal, that in the same day, or at least in the same week, 450 million people, well, 300 people with voting right, are called to elect a transnational assembly. This is not normal at all. This is something revolutionary if we want to use it and if we know how to use it, because we are not the only form of integration among people and among countries. But we are, there is the African Union, there is the Mercosur, there are 200, at least 200 forms of regional integration. Many of them, they got parliamentary assembly. None of them is directly elected like the European Parliament. So I think that emphasizing also what we are doing of historical, what we are doing historical, would help a lot to enrich it. And my last word, would help a lot also to lower a little bit the resistance as a mistrust of the member of the European Parliament, which I think was very open, legitimate, and transparent, expressed in an open, legitimate, transparent way this morning. So thank you, Calypso. Thank you very much. Thank you all. I'm sorry I can't stay until the end, but I'm really very late. Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
having taken the time and for hosting us. Thanks, Andrew.
So if we were on Zoom, that would be the moment where it would say the host has left the meeting. We all know that message. Thank you so much, Sandro Gozzi. We have now half an hour left, and I just want to run you through what we're going to do next. First, we're going to hear from, we broadened the discussion to include a voice from the European Commission, sitting right next to me here. And then we are collecting reactions, discussions, not really a Q&A, Q&A because many people that actually said something cannot answer anymore. That is how it is today. So, but we will have time for reaction discussions with the people that are still here, and maybe at the end we have one or two more people coming in for some views. So. To make it short, and as I said, so welcome very much Mara Silva Almeida from the Joint Research Center, and who doesn't know, it's the European Commission's Science and Knowledge Service, and Mara is a natural scientist by training and became an expert in the interface between science, policy, and citizens. I'm just saying that because that's also kind of my biography, so I like to read that. And she's now leading policy officer for the JRC's Future of Democracy project. So great to have you, and looking forward to your input.
Okay, thanks everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here and to be part of this discussion. So I'm here representing the European Commission, more specifically the Joint Research Center, and especially the team of colleagues that are actually based in ISPRA, working on the Competence Center for Participatory and Deliberative Democracy. So they've been doing quite a lot of work on the issues of citizens' engagement for quite a long time. And I thought it would be, interesting following the invitation to share a little bit of the work that has been done by the Commission. I think, so basically since I think the conference on the future of Europe has triggered many interesting developments, and also under the Defense of Democracy package, a recommendation by the Commission was adopted in 2023 on the promotion of engagement and effective participation of citizens in civil society organizations in public policy making process, which is very much now on the member states to implement this recommendation. Until now, 6 citizens panel had been taken place in very different themes, from hatred speech to food security. So I think the Commission has been very much taking serious the fact that citizen engagement could be a very interesting process to be close to citizens. There is also a citizens platform that the Commission has developed for the use of the wider public. And the last activity that I think would be interesting to discuss here is actually one that has been proposed by the European Parliament in 2022, which was the organization of a youth assembly on pollinators, which actually has taken place on the 26th and the 28th of September here in the Parliament. He has basically had the participation of around 100 young people from the age of 18 to 29 to basically involve them in the discussion to discuss about actions that would be needed to reverse the decline of pollinators. But besides that, I think the Assembly also aims to discuss with the young people the involvement of them in the governance of biodiversity. But I think it's also an interesting experiment to explore how something as an assembly could take place in the Parliament. So I think the idea is really to experiment and explore how it can take place, where, when should young people be involved, what resources would be needed, and from whom. So I think it's important that we actually make use of many of the things that have been taking place, organized by the Commission, but also other places at the national level in the member states, and really reflect how things could take place. I think there is a body of a lot of actions, also at local level, regional level, and I think it would be very interesting at the European level to really take advantage of all that knowledge and body of experience that there is how things could be taken forward in terms of how best ways we could listen to citizens and being close to them on the ground and understanding what are their needs and concerns regarding many issues, and hopefully to make them trust that on democracy and the feeling that democracy is only for them, and to listen to what their needs are. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Actually, the Assembly on Pollinators, I think a lot of people in the room here have been involved following it in different roles, and it's kind of seems to be like a little fan club, I think, on it. It seems to be work pretty well coming up in all discussions. So thank you so much. So we're opening for reactions now, and I have a first. I see your hand. We have a first reaction from Eve, who kind of volunteered to head off and break the ice, and then we open this. If you can just do a show of hands. We'll call upon you. Please limit your contribution, of course, to 1 or 2 minutes. Very precise, please. And if you could say your name and your affiliation, your group you're belonging to, then we know each other. That's it on Eve.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear colleagues, dear elected officials. So I'm Yves Mathieu from Mission Publique, and I'm a public policy designer with the inclusion of citizens. It was fantastic to hear a feminine voice. Thank you. We can see that the host from the Parliament who decided to have this session do not represent a big diversity of gender, and I hope that in the future it will be rebalanced. And I'm sorry to speak as a male. So please listen to my feminine part of myself. And so let's go into practicalities, because as we heard, it's like this house, like the Parliament. It has constantly evolved since its creation. It was in the beginning a consultative body. It's now a body with powers, and in the future reforms, it will get more powers. And that should be the same with a permanent citizens' assembly. I heard that we could start talking about how to rebalance the powers and how to change the treaties to make sure that there is a citizens' assembly that is fully recognized. But we cannot start by the end. We need to start by the beginning. And if this happens in 20 years, that will be wonderful. Maybe it will be in 10 years, but we need to start. And the best way to start is to do it. I mean, it's nice to talk, it's nice to exchange and to see how we combine our visions and our idea. And that's the strength of democratic Odyssey. We just did it in 3 cities. We saw how it worked. We know there are many imperfections, and that's okay. We accept them. What is important is to make it. And so the question that we could discuss here is what's the next step? Not in talking, but in doing. And what will be the next edition? Because, of course, it will raise a lot of questions, but like the questions that were raised within the Commission when the Commission decided to organize the citizens panel. The first one lasted 1 day. That was in 2018. And they just tested it. They understood what it could represent. And now there are 3 every year. And it is being institutionalized within the European Commission. So it's a bit the same here within the Parliament. How can we start maybe with 1 day, but then continuing with the vision of a permanent assembly? And I will now stop by inviting you to consider, if we do it, it's important to think how it's going to scale. Some of us here share a research project called Scale Dem, and this question of scaling is very important. It's how do we scale deep? We could hear with the 2 citizens that took the floor that they have been moved by the experience. This is scaling deep because it's state-of-the-art, and getting into democracy should not be something perceived as something disgusting or violent or somewhere that we don't want to go. And thank you for the MEP to have put your name on the list and to have won the election. But we need to come back to a principle where politics can be re-enchanting. And that's very important to touch that. That's scaling deep. Of course, we need to scale high to institutionalize. We need to touch more people. We need to scale in all the direction of scaling. And this is important for the next edition, to have that in mind and to improve our collective capacity to scale the experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I have a reaction here on the left, please.
So thank you very much for the invitation. My name is Stella Veliki. I have studied physics and informatics, and I am a member of the European Physical Society. I'm really an European citizen. I'm coming here for a lot of years, take part to the seminar because I find it very interesting. I appreciate it very much, and I agree very much with this proposition that the citizen take part to the decision. And I appreciated the reference from the person from Austria. I know that people are representing in Belgium too. They are for 1 year. They representing no political party, that only the people. And they are changing every year. They are bringing the new problem of the citizen, and the decision of the parliament is taken only if these people agree with that. That is a very important thing. Another thing is what I want to add to the Austrian proposition is an European platform where you write all the experiences from the country. They have this people, this democracy. And another thing is I want that you take the European Citizen Initiative in your plan, because I was here in European Parliament when the European Citizen Initiative was proposed, and the European Commission do all possible not to be effective this European initiative. You must change the structure of this European Citizen Initiative. It's a very, very important and effective instrument.
Thank you.
I want only to answer to some map. One map.
Very quickly, please. Yes.
Map say our work is reflect what the people want. No, it's not reflecting. They reflect what their political party wants in European Parliament. I want to say, yes, European Parliament is a democracy for the people. Not 100%. You have the lobbyist part in the election of the map, in the decision of the map. It's a very important thing. And you have no regulation for this. That is very clear. And I have no questions.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I will actually, while people here in the room think about raising their hand, I will have a question online. There are also a few questions here with the people on the YouTube stream. So Erwin Meyer asks, and I will just give that maybe to Calypso and Eve, actually, the question, roping you in. Erwin Meyer asked, why should the Conference for Europe, the Democratic Odyssey, just be consultative? Why not combine it with a binding referenda like in Ireland or Oregon? So about, that's what the people out there asking. And there's a second question I want to raise as well, and that's from Sofia Serra Silva, and she says, I'm a political scientist who studies how parliaments engage the public and embed democratic innovations. For that reason, I'm pessimistic, as I've seen empirically how poor institutional design and lack of political will undermine these experiments. How would it be different in this case? So two very different questions, but I think very, very good contributions to our discussion. So happy to answer them straight away or move them through discussion, but I would give the word to Calypso first.
The beauty of this journey is that the answer is collective, and this is about co-design. And we are entering a new phase of the Democratic Odyssey, which is this journey of continuing to ask. Now, the question of binding is fascinating because we've all heard a lot of resistance, not all of you, but a lot of resistance from MEP who says, hey, we are it, and we're constantly changing. So part of our answer to this is what Yves said earlier. This will be evolving constantly. If an assembly is created, not by treaty change, but through some much more informal agreement between institutions, initially simply having consultation, conversation, magnifying European Parliament debates to the broader public in Europe who doesn't hear what we say, doesn't hear the panels, all the wonderful innovations Mara talked about. Yes, but they're not heard. Just that first step would be key. Whether then you can get to a moment where it would lead to an ECI, to indeed more direct democracy, and who knows, referenda, preferenda. Carsten in the room here has been working a lot on ECI. Yes, these all are options that we will explore together. And that will be part of the journey, is my very short answer.
Any reactions from the room to anything you've heard, to what the MEP said? So I'm collecting here. I'm seeing Berta over here, then a second one over there.
Okay, hello. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you very much, everyone who has spoken so far. My name is Berta Miget. I am a researcher at the Center for European Policy Studies, which is an independent think tank based here in Brussels. I am also part of the Democratic Odyssey crew, so perhaps that kind of betrays the fact that I am pro this Permanent People's Assembly. I just wanted to mention a fact that I think is there was a very valid criticism from one of the MEPs who spoke earlier, which is that if you have 300 citizens randomly selected, or even if they're sortitioned to some amount, how are you going to make sure that they actually know how Europe works? Because this European institution machine is incredibly complex. And so, of course, you can't expect citizens to know what better regulation is or how the institutions work or all of the nitty-gritty little committees that are happening here. So there's a couple of answers to that, and then I think we can also talk about this more together. The first is that you choose a question for your committees that does not necessarily need citizens to know about better regulation, but does not necessarily need citizens to know about the nitty-gritty of European legislation making. Instead, citizens come with their own experience from the ground, their local experience as citizens, and that is typically something that is very, very key to legislation and policymaking, that it is sometimes missing, right? This is the divide that we keep hearing about between citizens and policymakers. The second is that there is learning happening typically at citizens' assemblies. So not only can citizens learn more about the European project that we're undergoing, but also there can be experts and resource persons to help them think through some things. As an example, in one of the citizens' assemblies, the citizens tried to recreate the AI office. And then we had a moment of learning together where we looked up how it works, how it functions, and we went on a journey together to discover what expert groups even are, for example, in the European Commission. And all of this is super useful because it then also brings citizens even closer to this European project and makes them understand the process of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I had another reaction over there. You can, of course, also react to each other, by the way. That's the point of it. It's a dialogue. Please.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here with you this morning. My name is Liam McCauley from the ESID Foundation. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things that were said. I think what was been really great about this morning is getting to hear actually a lot of dissent and having, like our friend just said, people point out maybe some problems with citizens' assemblies and things. And I think what's really special about this proposal, as someone who's been involved with citizens' assemblies before, is having it be permanent, having it actually attached to complement the European Parliament specifically, I think can do a lot to obviate a lot of the problems which otherwise usually attend these. So I just wanted to stress that quickly in a couple of ways. We heard earlier that the Conference of Europe stuff it felt silenced afterwards, for example. I think a good way to resolve that is exactly what you're proposing. Make it permanent, make it attached to the democratic decision-making body. And then I think, as one of the online questioners, Sophia said, this definitely can, as the other centers earlier pointed out, the project can be compromised from sort of poor institutional design. So that's everything from, like we've heard, what kind of questions do you ask them? How do you educate them? But I think like I said, because of the permanence, it's actually a really special opportunity to get this right and to really enhance the democratic dimension, and actually, contrary to what we heard earlier, to enhance the democratic credentials of the European Parliament. And so I think just while we're dwelling on this, it's important to dwell on this permanent aspect and how that can make things different. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Any more hands? There's Carsten over here, and then here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Carsten from the ECI Association. We've been very much involved in the Odyssey, particularly in the fundraising and co-designing phase. And we also contributed to the inclusion of the world's first transnational instrument, which is the European Citizens Initiative. And I think before we, or not only before, but at the same time as we go into citizen assemblies, we really should draw the lessons from this instrument. And our dear friend, Laurent Vinci from the EPP, the most powerful group in the parliament, clearly said that the impact on the follow-up has been very limited. And I think this is the current state of the art of the discussion on citizen assemblies. If they don't lead to follow-up, legal follow-up, and de facto implementation, and if we don't incorporate this from the very outset into the design of citizen assemblies, we run the big risk that the entire business or issue here becomes a boomerang that affects us negatively. And in that sense, I believe this should be the focus for any next steps. And please also keep in mind the European Parliament is really much stronger than 20 years ago, but it is still the weakest parliament in the world, the only parliament, democratic parliament in the world that does not have a right of initiative. So also this room here or this house needs more power, and the Conference on the Future of Europe exactly proposed to strengthen these powers with the right of initiative, but also to strengthen the parliament in many other ways, and of course also citizen assemblies and ECIs and so on. So I would suggest that we join forces. It's such a pity that all the MEPs, apart from our friends from Italy, is not here anymore. We would need to see that there's I would suggest to look at the lack of accountability we suffer from within citizen assemblies, ECIs, but also the European Parliament towards the institutions, especially the Commission and the Council, because we currently see this massive power shift in the times of crisis in terms of executivism, which is why the European Parliament currently tries to sue the European Commission for bypassing the Parliament in emergency policies. This is currently where many energy is, hardly anyone talks about, but I think to discuss democracy without the emergency policy in times of crises, we bypass very important points. So I really look forward to follow up these kind of discussions. For those, I think many of us will be in the 2 days conference, also on democracy R&D. It will be also a top issue, and I would love to deepen this much more.
Thank you so much. I have Michele on the list, and then Andrea, and then Ulrike, and then Andrea. So in my party family, where I'm from, we're doing gender mixing always. So that's.
So yeah, Michele Fiorillo from Civic Europa in the coalition Citizen Takeover Europe that is in the coalition Democratic Odyssey. I think this is important to underline that Democratic Odyssey experience is bridging together different experiences, so bridging a coalition. I think this is important. We have to enlarge coalition. Today was amazing to have this open conversation. It was very important, and also decent voices were open to this. And I think we need this type of conversations in the squares. You remember in Paris, Nuit Debout, you have seen the impact that had the squares for a peaceful Middle East, for a free Palestine in the respect of the international law. The fear always is that squares, then at some point, the people disappear from the square. What we can do, I think, with the instruments of deliberative democracy and representative democracy, the two forces joined, is to revitalize democracy, also making the squares reasoning more, to become more a general intellect. That is what we lack at the moment, because at the moment we have a single intellect, they think to be general intellect, and then they want to become emperors of the world. And in that respect, I think, here I'm finishing, there was a lot of experimentation with Democratic Odyssey about civic arts, revitalizing public spaces, also symbolical spaces. We started on the hill in front of the Parthenon, the goddess of reason. The pinks where the ancient assembly of the Athenians were taking places. Then we moved to the Palazzo Vecchio, where there was another revitalization of direct participatory democracy during the times of Machiavelli, etc. The sortition element, I think today, and here I'm ending, we have heard some illiteracy by MPs about how this type of representation through sortition, and by the way, the great Aristotle was saying, true democracy is by sortition and not by election. Election is for oligarchy. And you know also the iron law of oligarchy that was underlined by the theorists of political science following Machiavelli, Michels, Pareto, Mosca, that there is always this iron law of oligarchy. Democracy can become oligarchy, then tyranny, if you don't revitalize democracy. And a way to revitalize democracy are citizen assemblies. Let's work together.
Thank you very much. And Leoluca Orlando just asked me for 30 seconds, but I really need to be strict on the 30.
Only a suggestion for the democratic journey. I think it's true and strategically convenient not to exaggerate stressing the crisis of the European Parliament. I believe that the crisis of the European Parliament is the temporary crisis of a really prominent champion. I think it's convenient to say that, because otherwise our proposal, your proposal, will never be accepted by the European system. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. And I'm welcoming in the room Vice President Negrescu here. Thank you so much for joining us. You can join us here in the front. And I think that's a good way to actually not put you on the spot right away. Good to meet you. But to maybe have Ulrike and Andrea help me to summarize where we stand right now, so you can close with your statement, so I don't have to do it. Ulrike.
Yeah, hello. And thank you for having me here. I'm working as a political scientist, part-time professor at the European University Institute on the Scale Dem project, which Yves Mathieu from Mission Publique has mentioned, scaling democratic innovations. So we evaluate some 300 research projects on democratic innovations, and the problem is they are so fragmented and not very long-lived frequently if we don't bring them together. And so now, Max, you challenged me. I'm also part of the Democratic Odyssey, which is the transnational level, and at the local level, we have a lot of experiences that are quite established, institutionalized, permanent in Belgium, and also in Germany. There are some who are learning from the Belgian example, Aachen and so on. So how to bring this, let's say, scaling democratic innovations, citizens' participation, deliberation, how to bring this into the EU system of, I would say, parliamentary democracy really in the European Union is a transnational innovation which needs to be reinforced, merits to be reinforced, and therefore a pragmatic step forward would be to think about how citizens' consultation, participation, and deliberation can help to strengthen the European Parliament in what it hasn't achieved so far, to overcome the hurdles, the obstacles, formidable obstacles erected by the member states, by the Council, with respect to the follow-up of the COFI recommendations and so on. And what could this be? This would be a real, let's say, a catch-23. Where does the council, where do the ministers from the national governments, where are there intricate problems they can't resolve without creating and tapping into innovations that would generate legitimacy? And we have many of these questions, and I mentioned just one, the German discussion about reintroducing conscription, a military service, obligatory. So this is one. And to do a party vote, one of the government coalition parties, it won't do the trick. And this is a question which the global, yeah, very short last sentence. The global security, competition, and sustainability are the major challenges with which the Commission is dealing and the European parliamentarians are dealing. So to resolve this question, to overcome these hurdles,
the citizen participation deliberation would be really a great step forward to strengthen the European Parliament and to make the Council cooperate on these innovations forward.
Thank you so much. And I'm just mindful of the time that we might be kicked out in 3 minutes or 2 now. So that's why I'm giving Victor Negrescu here, the Vice President of the European Parliament, the floor, because I think if you are speaking, we can't be kicked out. So I think that's how that works. So great to have you and looking forward.
Yeah, hopefully I will not get kicked out. But of course, I'm happy to be here, and I want to congratulate you for being part of this project and for the work that you conducted. So this is why I did my best to come meet you all, despite the fact that I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to reach Brussels today. But nevertheless, of course, I think it's crucial for us to see how we can move forward the European project. And I've been part of the Conference for the Future of Europe. I noticed, of course, the great contribution that citizens had in those respective dialogues, the good ideas that came, but also the problems when it comes to managing debate, when it comes to constraints, when it comes to the culture of dialogue, but also the topics that sometimes were reflected. The fact that, of course, today, as you all know, we get very much influenced by social media, and sometimes I come from Romania. Influence can come from abroad in controversial ways. Nevertheless, I think this idea and this proposal to have permanent structures of dialogue with citizens where citizens get involved, having this idea of an assembly, is something that really needs reflection. In the same time, as members of the European Parliament, I have to mention that we are supposed also to be citizens, representing other citizens. So we cannot double things. But I think, of course, because Europe is as huge as it is, we need to find ways to integrate as many voices in the decision-making process. That is why, as Vice President of the European Parliament, I asked the Bureau of the European Parliament to start reflecting on the future of the European Parliament. And the Bureau approved my proposal in July to start a reflection here in the European Parliament. We are going to conduct an analysis, a study that involves political parties here in the European Parliament to project what will be the future of the European Parliament by 2040. It's an open process. We'll try to involve also inputs coming from citizens in that process as well, because the Parliament is a house of citizens, and this is what we want to be. In the same time, I heard the earlier comments. Not everyone considered the European Parliament as being the voice of citizens. Not everyone wants to give the European institutions a stronger role. And of course, for the follow-up of many of the comments and requests made by citizens during the Conference of the Future of Europe, we have to mention that we are confronted with a lot of opposition, hostility, if I might say, from many leaders in the Council. And I also have to mention that at the Commission level, we were not also actively supported, despite those comments in Soteo, which sound nice. We didn't see as much support as we have expected coming from the Commission. Nevertheless, I tend to be optimistic. I think with the recent evolutions brought also by new technological tools, there are better ways to involve citizens. Myself, I got in the European Parliament many years ago by doing citizens engagement. I did a lot of campaigns. Some of my campaigns enabled me to collect close to 50,000 signatures for my different proposals that I was making at European level. So getting 50,000 people to engage and to support an initiative is not always easy. So this is why I fully understand why we need to better connect with citizens, that sometimes there are discrepancies, but also sometimes we do things here that are effective, that are useful, that people never hear about or do not know that we actually did it here at European level. So therefore, again, I think your project brings a wonderful contribution to how we can improve the process. This idea of having a permanent dialogue with citizens is something that, of course, needs to be supported. let's find ways forward. And of course, let's keep in touch to see how we can achieve that while pressuring the other European institutions also to integrate some of your requests and ideas in the decision-making process. So thank you again for the invitation. I'm happy that I managed to reach the conference and to share with you my strong belief that we can do all of that together, and strong support for your work. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You could join us.
Yes, it's a difficult day in Brussels generally with the strike and everything. And we're closing the meeting now with two very important people of the whole journey. This is Andrea Geiber and Irena Alonso, both managers of the whole process from two different institutions that are building up a lot of the work. And I'm giving the word first to Andrea and then to Irena, and then we're going to probably kick out for good.
Thank you. We're in negative time, so I'll be very brief and I'll try to summarize. 3 main points. I think what we've seen today is that really democracy can be only revitalized through embedded complementarity, right? So we're not advocating for the substitution of electoral democracy, but the complementarity and how to rejuvenate democracy in that specific way. Democracy has to be approachable. It has to acknowledge emotions in a much more constructive way. And we have heard about the role of civic arts, the role of inclusive design since the very start, also in the sortation process. Second point is about transcalarity and scalability. So transcalarity starting from the local level to the European and back, and how we design an assembly that works in this way. Scaling, so reaching out to a general public in a much more effective way, in a way that Yves described as well. And also the third point is permanency. Permanency is not about routinizing, but it's about ensuring follow-up. It's why we talk about permanency for the most part. So in a way, this is what permanent assemblies are able to do. They're not a silver bullet, but they're an accelerator of more substantive democratic debate.
Thank you, Andrea. And the final word to Irena.
Before they kick us out.
Exactly.
Well, in my personal case, I've been part of the Democratic Odyssey in a very operational sense, implementing the whole assembly city after city, traveling across Europe as much as I wouldn't think it was possible. And perhaps the thing I have to say here is that seeing how much effort it takes to implement it, to actually bring up the passion, the energy, and the belief that this is actually possible. Now that I'm here, now that I'm listening to the politicians, but also I'm seeing the illusion of the citizens that transmit that power and that empowerment it got to them through that assembly. We are going to be doing this for a while. We are going to keep trying to have a permanent people's assembly as much as we have energy in our bones. But most importantly, these citizen assemblies and deliberation and in general participation, it is at the core of reducing polarization. It is at the core of bringing a diversity of people coming together and actually talking, actually understanding each other, actually seeing that there is, of course, division and there is conflict, but there is solidarity and community. So, yeah, that's how I'd like to end this. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. So very important housekeeping. There's a list there. You need please to sign there, and once you signed, you get a tote bag, so you can carry the message of the Democratic Odyssey with you in the tote bag. And while you're queuing to sign and getting your tote bag, we'll also hear the support video from Brando Benefei, another MEP who actually couldn't be with us but left us a video. So we will show that video, and you can queue for the registration and the tote bags and the goodies and the coffee if you still want something to take out. In the meantime, closing the meeting. Thank you very much for everyone involved. Thank you.
And thank you, Max, for sharing.
Thank you, Max, for brilliant sharing, Max. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Max, this is for you.
Yes, thank you.
The first severe reaction was a disaster. So I was expecting to react except for COVID. And then the reaction very strongly today, and not the Megadin said speech.